Let's think of a hoop. We're going to think of a hoop. Think of a ring. Let's say it's a perfect circle. When your rim was made, the hoop on your rim, you know what? It ain't perfect. You can try and make it better with adjustment to spoke tension. But this wheel, a real life wheel. Sir, do we know you? No, he just came out of the audience. This rim is actually pretty darn straight. But if you look at the tire, whoa, that tire's everywhere. We don't want to use spoke tension here. It'll mess up his braking. Nope, braking's down here. It'll mess up his handling. It'll be so wobbly. This is a tire issue, not a rim issue. How can we fix this? Brand new tire? Sometimes what he needs to try is to break the bead free, reseat it, and see if it's straight. So we'll hand that back to him. It's not a problem. So he's not a problem with the rim. Yep, he's going to get on that. But this one does have a problem, and you might have a problem. Let's talk about what you need. The main thing you need is a couple of things. Knowledge. That's the first thing you need, is knowledge how to do this. Practice doing it. What's a good way to learn on all things mechanical? Learn on somebody else's bike. Volunteer at your bike soup kitchens. Volunteer for those free bikes for kids, that kind of charity work. You can learn a lot. Then you're ready to do your own. You do need a spoke wrench. So these little tools here come in different sizes. They fit the nipple of the spoke. So the component, we talked about the component. Remember a hoop? You got a rim, it's like a ring, it's a hoop. Good way to think of it? It's a rolling suspension bridge. The rim is suspended around the hub. In my case, 32 struts, 32 fasteners. So think of this simply as bolts and nuts holding the hoop, the rim, to our hub. The spoke is a bolt. The nut is the nipple. They should all be correctly tight and evenly tight, but it ain't going to be perfect, nor does it need to be perfect. So we said the one thing we need is knowledge. The second is a spoke wrench. It's nice to have a truing stand. Oh, we want you to have a truing stand because we make them. But he's riding a truing stand. A bike is holding the wheel steady so you can use your bike, all right? So when we hold the wheel steady and we spin it, let's think about how this works. We have spokes on the right flange, we have spokes on the left flange, and one pulls one way, one pulls the other way. We want to find the middle way to keep it centered. But to correct things, we pull on one side or we pull on the other, and it's going to move our rim back and forth. So here, I can spin the rim. It actually looks wobbly, kind of hard for you to see. Here's another way. If we bring in our little indicators here, do we hear that scraping? It's scraping to the right side. As you're seeing it, this is the gear side, the right side. This little piece of rim needs to move which way? To the left. So remember, there's tension on both sides, so there's two ways to do this. I can increase tension on the left side, which effectively shortens that spoke. But what's another way? Loosen the ones on the right. So which should I do? Sometimes it's best to do both. But if you're learning, just tighten. Just tighten it. Don't worry about being too fancy. So this is the difficult part. Who has got a bottle, who's got a water bottle? You have a water bottle, sir. Grab your water bottle here. He's gonna hold your water bottle upside down. There he goes. He is holding the bottle. Which way do I turn the cap to loosen it? So you people that know this is how you teach your friends. This one, it's lefty-loosey from the direction of the thing that's turning. But it's upside down. It's upside, so I am loosening. This is tightening. That's what's happening here. So for me, tightening, it's clockwise this direction. If I'm looking backwards, it's still tightening, but it's going to appear to be counterclockwise. Another good teaching technique for you shop people, you're teaching someone new, they make a correction and the rim got worse. What happened? You went the wrong way. It's a feedback loop, okay? So here, I have a rub on the left side, it needs to come to the right. I'm going to try this one. There it is. So, can we hear that? Yep. So here we're going to loosen this one. It's better and better. So you make those little rubs go away. There's 4 things in truing. To be true in a wheel, what do we need? Laterally true. That's left and right. Up and down is called hop or radial. So radial true is the same concept. If it's moving toward the hub, that's a flat spot. If it's moving away from the spoke, the hub, that's a high spot. There we tighten spokes on both sides to bring it down or to let it come up. So we have radial, we have lateral, we have centering over the hub, and that's called dish. We want these 2 rims to be centered in the frame so that, well, why is that? Why do we want our wheels centered? Handling, right? You want the 2 wheels floating down that trail, nice. If you're offset, it's going to be different left turns and different right turns. Handling's going to be different. So we want it centered. Truing stands will do some centering, but the most accurate tool is a dishing gauge. What this does, it compares one side to the other side to see if it's centered over the middle. There's another way. If you put it in your bike and it looks in the middle of the frame, it is in the middle of the frame. So simply install it. If they look aligned, they are aligned. So that's the third. What's the fourth? How tight. And that is one of the key things. This wheel here is actually, it's nice. It's straight. It's got good round. It's got good centering. But if we squeeze these spokes, they're actually kind of loose. I could send this wheel out and I could have a great ride for a few weeks. But what does a loose nut and bolt like to do? Get looser, right? So the pedal, you got pedals on your bike, sir. By the way, we haven't done our giveaway. See if you can answer this correct. Get a bottle opener. What keeps that pedal from falling off the bike? No, not pedaling forward. The pedal's backwards. What keeps it from falling off the bike? What did you do when you put the pedal on? Tighten it. You are right. The tightening keeps it tight. If you tighten it enough, you're literally flexing the metal and it holds it tight. It's called preload. It's called preload. So in a wheel, we need good tension or preload on each spoke. So although we're straight, we have low tension, and that's where this little gizmo is handy dandy. It's a squeeze-a-mathon, okay? Well, maybe it's a tensiometer, but what it does is squeeze. So you should get used to squeezing here. All right, squeeze your spokes. Go to a shop, squeeze their spokes. So what this does is it flexes a spoke, squeezes it over a fixed distance with a calibrated spring. That's all it does. So I come up here, it flexes and bends the spoke and it takes a reading. Then I can use a chart, depending on the size of the spoke, to tell me how much force. Typically, a good, strong mountain bike wheel, this mountain bike wheel, tough wheel, should have easily over 100 kilogram of pull. Now my physicist friends are going to kick my butt for this. We're going to use gravity as a force. That is a force. Let's see, I need somebody about 200 pounds. You, sir! What are you weighing today?
175.
175. We put a spoke on his head.
Let's say 200.
He's probably coming in, say 90 kgf. He's almost a tight spoke, right? So think of the energy. 32 spokes all pulled that tight with that kind of force all the way around the hoop. That's minimal. A tight wheel should be at probably 120 kilograms force. What do we got? 240, 250 pounds. Who here is 250? Two of you together? That's the kind of load you want. That keeps it from coming. Now, do spokes stretch? Trick question. Do spokes stretch? Win a bottle opener if you answer this.
Yes.
They do not. Bottle opener. Yay. They flex. That's true. That was a trick question. Spokes do flex. Watch. This is a piece of steel. Do you know what it does? Watch careful. Did you see it stretch? Well, when you load steel, it does stretch. It wants to come back together. It's called the modulus of elasticity. When we tighten it up, spokes will stretch and permanently deform at enough tension, right? By the time you get a spoke literally to deform permanently, you have just blown out your rim and your hub. All right? Things should be as tight as possible for the weak link in our wheel. What do you think the weak link is?
The nipple.
The nipple and the nipple at the rim and the hub. The spoke itself is strong, strong, strong. So you can rip out of the hub and you can pull through the rim. This is where manufacturer's specifications are important. Crank arms, there's a torque setting. Stems, they often give torque settings. What's a torque setting on a rim? It's actually the tension they recommend. DT likes about 120 Newton. No, I'm sorry, 1200 Newton, which is about 120 kgf. So manufacturers, Alex rims, Shimano, you can look them up online. They give you settings. This will tell you how much the spoke is pulling, but to know how much you need, you go to your rim manufacturer, Hayes, all of those companies, they'll tell you, okay? So, to get tension, we tighten everything around evenly a bit at a time, okay? Now let's talk about when things go bad. What happens? What kind of bad things can happen? Who's had a bad wheel? What happened to it? What happened to it? Blew the spokes from the rim? Came out of it. Did it hit something first? That's rocks. Rocks got bad things to wheels. There's a limit to strength. Everything has a limit, right? So, if you see a rim and it's badly bent, sometimes the metal has literally been bent. If we try and correct our spoke tension and it just doesn't work, it tells you it's body work. Once this aluminum rim has been bent, there is no real repair. Now, there's definitely people there will tell you this is black magic, this is voodoo here. I'm gonna straighten your rim and blacksmith it straight, right? It doesn't work. It gets you out of the trail, it gets you back home, but that rim really it's damaged beyond use. You should get a new hoop, right? You can rebuild it or just get a new wheel. So there's limits there. Truing, some other bad things. If there's no lubrication, you've let this thing sit too long, it's all rusty. You try and turn the nut and there's a lot of tension, it's going to turn the bolt and the nut together. You're going to wrap it up, and then what's going to happen to that spoke? You could break it. You could break it. Now, where do spokes tend to break? This should make sense. Where? At the ends. That's the weak point. So one end we have what? Little cuts. Cuts on our spoke. What's another word for the threads? The threads are cut in the spoke. What is the other end? It's called the bend or the head. They just bent that to make it. So the two ends of the spoke are the weak part. That makes sense. Now, what else can go wrong? We did not adjust our limit screws, which we will cover at 2 o'clock. Limit screws, if this goes up and over into the spokes, and starts to cut those spokes. Do you need to replace them? Nah. It'd have to be really, really bad. If you've literally cut a quarter of your spoke off, yes, replace it. But it's amazing how badly gouged spoke you can ride. It's weak, but it's still going to be, these are still the weak ends, the ends, not where you've cut. So main thing there is adjust your limit screws. So we had bent rims, that's bad, there's limits there. We've had frozen nipples here, seized up from rust. What else can bad happen to our wheel? Oh, let's talk about a little more science. When you check your tension, you put a tire on and inflate it, guess what happens to your spoke tension? It drops because you're squeezing that rim. So you wheel builders here, be careful. Do you set tension inflated or deflated? What do you think, inflated or deflated? What's that? He is wrong, so he gets a bottle opener. The rim manufacturers have figured that in. So when because for wheel builders, most wheel builders, they don't even know what a tire is. They put it in the box and ship it off. It's not their job. So when they spec spoke tension from the manufacturer, they're assuming it's a builder and there's no tire. So don't try and outthink them. Don't think, yeah. So another way to be confused is trying to get the right side and left side tension. If you look at this as a triangle. This spoke represents one leg, this spoke is another. You didn't know you came here for your high school geometry and trigonometry, did you? Isosceles triangle, what's that mean? Two sides, but is this an isosceles? No, he would get a bottle opener, but he's too young. So, we do not have an isosceles triangle. One side is flatter, one side is out more. If you look at this wheel, see how this is, from your points of view, you can see how one side's flatter? Which side here is the tighter side? What would you think? The right side or the left side is tighter? Who said that? Oh, bottle opener! Mr. Man! You would come out, we would come out better, we'd swap you. So, can you have even tension? People want to know my tight side, so let's go back to DT. They want 1,200 newtons, about 120 kgf on the drive side. What's the non-drive side tension supposed to be? Trick question. It cannot be the same. If it was the same tension, the rim would not be dished. You would be back to the equilateral triangle, right? We have to have it tighter on this side to move it over. But he's a BMX guy, so he's right, but he's too young, so he doesn't get a bottle opener. So on the BMX bike, they are saying left and right. So on this one, yeah, I don't know what, I got it. So, yes, he's right. Tire levers! So the BMX bikes, the flange is centered. Here, the flange is offset to account for gears and sometimes a rotor. So we have to set it for the tight side. You set the centering, the dish correctly. We don't even care what the left side is. Now, let's go one more thing. We talked about seizing and rust. Sometimes you want some controlled rust. It's called a thread locker. A thread locker. If you have to build a wheel, low tension, you have no choice. Thread locker is a good idea on the loose side to keep it from loosening further. Okay, to wrap up, a couple more things that happen when we ride. Truing is fun. You get to sit and you get to enjoy the zen of the wheel, and it's all beautiful. And sir, you like that? You love it. So he gets a bottle opener. So, but when you ride the bike, it's dynamic. You're doing things. You know what's fun? When you ride hard, you know what happens to your bones? They flex. How about this rim? Think of what happens when we ride here. Is it the same? When you ride, what happens to the tire down here? We've seen it. What happens? It bows. What happens to the rim right here as we ride? What do you think? It flattens. it actually flattens a little bit here. What do you think about the spoke tension right here? What's going to happen? It's going to drop. But then it goes up, the tension goes up. So every time it goes around and around, the tension is changing. Every single ride. Okay, he's my bike guy, so I got to ask him, how many times do your wheels go around in one ride? A lot. A lot. So every ride, it's going through a stress cycle. Metal hates change. Metal hates change, right? We don't want stress. So if we take a spoke and pull it up really tight, we come back to Sea Otter in 10,000 years, that spoke is happy. What do spokes hate is tight, loose, tight, loose, tight, loose. The stress and the flexing of tight and loose. The stress cycle, there's only so many it can take. So literally think about how many times it goes around. You're going to see millions of times, millions of stress cycles. Then what can happen? You actually harden the metal, it can break. Baseball is a pretty good game, great game, America's game. 3 strikes in your wheel, guess what? It's not just bad luck. It's time for all new spokes. You get 3 broken spokes, you have 1 broken spoke, let's put 1 in. Big deal, it's easy to do. You break 2 spokes, take note of that. 3rd broken spoke, it's time to relace. So, let's go and grab your bikes. If you wanted to try some wheel truing, if you've never done that, we can mess this back up. You can come and try it and get home, get some knowledge, get a spoke wrench, hopefully buy all the tools we have, even the spoke wrenches you don't need. Because it's so much fun. If you start getting tools, you know what you're going to get? More friends. They're going to come to you. All right? Be that person. Thanks for coming, and have a good otter.